4 wins in a row for the Sacramento Kings as they take a relatively easy win against the Dallas Mavericks here, 3-0 on the current road trip. The big storyline from this game is Kyrie Irving going down with an injury, and then Jaden Hardy went down with an injury. I mean, this already just injury-ravaged Mavericks team, it just gets even worse. And so it wasn't a particularly tough game for the Kings, but they got the job done. And really, that's what they've been doing as of late. They haven't played the toughest competition. The win against the Rockets was very impressive. Other than that, they really haven't played the toughest competition, but they've just been getting the job done. And they just looked extremely good. Not really breaking a sweat in this game. Even coming in to this one, I was expecting the Kings to come away with a win. Looking at who the Mavericks have and who they have out more specifically, this was a game that the Kings should come in and win no matter what. Then obviously Kyrie Irving going down. And then one of the guys that you really look to step in for Kyrie Irving, a lot of times when a star player goes down, someone else has opportunity to step up. I mean, Jaden Hardy was that guy. He knocked down a couple of threes. Jaden Hardy has been a guy that's played really well against the Kings in the past. He goes down. And just looking at the Mavericks box score, their starters, they didn't have a starter score over 7 points. And the starter who scored scored 7 points was Kyrie Irving, who played 9 minutes. And then their bench has 4 guys in double figures. They really just had zero offensive production from anyone. Spencer Dinwiddie had a horrible game. He didn't even really look to be aggressive. But I've seen way too many games like this where the Kings are playing opposition like this be too close for comfort or even turn into losses. So I'm not taking this win for granted at all, especially against a team so close to the Kings in the standings. It was a super important win, and they looked really good. I mean, especially offensively, the way things were flowing. Only 7 turnovers on the entire game. Not having Domantas Sabonis, but actually being able to survive that is so nice. I mean, even in the minutes where Trey Lyles was playing at center, the Kings still did well in those minutes. But I thought the offense just looked like it had really nice flow to it. And it was worrying early on after all the trades when the Kings offense didn't look good. It didn't look like it had flow. And of course, I expected that to get better with time, but sometimes things come in and they just click immediately. Sometimes they take a long time. And so there's really no way of knowing how long it would take for the offense to click, but it sure seems like it's clicking these last few games. And that's a big relief because this team is still geared towards offense. Yeah, they held the Mavericks here to 98 points. The defense even looked solid against Houston. They have not really played against an offense that's tested them recently. Them playing against this Mavericks team, nobody on the Mavericks wanted to shoot. It was like Klay Thompson, Kyrie Irving when he was playing, Jaden Hardy. Everyone else would catch the ball wide open on the perimeter and was looking to pass immediately. And so really all it took for the Kings defensively was just to not turn their brains off. They stayed locked in. That's why they were able to hold the Mavericks to 98 points. It was kind of wild. Like early on, DeMar DeRozan was guarding Kessler Edwards, and DeMar was sagging so far off Kessler, and when Kessler would catch the ball, he wasn't even looking towards the rim. Wide open from 3, and it's kind of weird because when Kessler Edwards was on the Kings, one of the things that I praised him a lot for was just he comes in and he shoots the ball when he's open. Like he doesn't pass up shots that he needs to take. And so it's just weird. I mean, he's playing a different role on the Mavericks. He's been asked to play the 5 at times, and he's playing the 4. And so he's being asked to play, a bigger position rather than a wing that's a 3-and-D guy. But it was still just like, DeMar is leaving him wide open. And so that helps the Kings defense a lot when DeMar doesn't have to close out on a guy, because that's one of the Kings' biggest weaknesses is DeMar having to cover ground and close out on guys. But offensively, I love the way that the Kings were playing through Valanciunas, and he was confident operating with the ball on the perimeter, distributing the ball. He hit a midi, he hit a little floater. He missed some good looks inside. It actually wasn't the most efficient night for Valanciunas. He missed a lot of good looks inside because he had these smaller Maverick centers on him. But overall, he was just really good being the hub of the offense. And the Kings as a whole were just really sharing the ball. Shots were going down early. Monk was hitting a step back 3. Keegan had a really nice drive and scoop finish. And the ball was just moving. Everyone was getting their touches. No one was holding onto the ball too long and going isolation. And so it kind of felt like we were seeing the full, maybe not quite full potential of the offense, but the potential of the offense when they really are sharing the ball. We had an early challenge in this one, like 4 minutes in, when Malik Monk blocked Kai Jones but got him on the arm. And it was just a dumb challenge. Like, I just wanted to mention it because obviously it didn't have an impact in this game. But the Kings lose their challenge super early on in this game. And I just think coaches around the league, a lot of coaches are really bad at using challenges. Why are you challenging a foul call on Malik Monk? This isn't like Valanciunas is picking up his second or third early foul. He's fouling Kai Jones, who's not the greatest free throw shooter. This wasn't an and one or anything like that. This was just a bad free throw shooter going to the line. Best case scenario is you take away the free throws. Like, it's just not worth the challenge at that point of the game, even if you're absolutely sure you're going to win it, which they didn't even win it. So, yeah, I hate those types of challenges. But defensively in that first quarter, I thought the Kings were super disciplined in executing their game plan and playing the percentages. Keegan was doing a great job of chasing Kyrie Irving off of the three-point line. Zach LaVine was doing a good job of chasing Klay Thompson off the three-point line. We saw Valanciunas get switched on to Klay Thompson twice. He chased Klay Thompson off the three-point line. It was chase these certain guys, mainly Kyrie Irving and Klay Thompson, off the three-point line, deny Kyrie Irving the ball as much as possible, which Keegan was doing a very good job of. And then these other guys don't really want to shoot the ball. Dante Exum doesn't want to shoot. Dwight Powell, he's definitely not going to shoot. Kessler Edwards, even all the guys off the bench, Kai Jones, Omax, Najee Marshall, Spencer Dinwiddie. These are not guys that really want to shoot threes. Some of them will shoot threes if they're wide open, but this is just not a good three-point shooting team. And so they forced other guys to put the ball on the ground and make something happen, trying to deny Kyrie as much as possible. I thought Keegan did a great job of that. Keon came in, and we've heard Keon say before that the toughest player for him to guard is Kyrie Irving. And yeah, that showed right away. Keon wasn't denying Kyrie the ball as much. Like, he wasn't impacting him as much physically as I think Keegan was. Keon just, he really does struggle to guard Kyrie Irving. And I mean, Kyrie, one of the craftiest players in the league. And Keegan was still in the game, so I feel like we probably should not have gone away from the Keegan on Kyrie matchup. And so Kyrie got cooking a little bit there. And because of that, it was moving the Kings defense around a little bit more, which allowed other guys from the Mavericks to be able to get into the paint. But then obviously Kyrie goes down, stays in the game to take those free throws. And there's a technical foul to get him out of the game because the Mavs staff came onto the court during the game. But it looked really bad, obviously, unfortunate situation there. But the Mavs didn't immediately collapse. The three-point shot was going down for the Kings. Keegan hit a couple early. Lyles came in, hit one. But then Keon missed a couple, including one that was off a Malik Monk steal. And great hustle, diving on the floor to get the ball. It's a 3-on-1 for the Kings, and somehow they don't even get a shot up at the rim. And it did result in a wide-open Keon Ellis 3, but man, when the ball gets to DeMar DeRozan in transition, he does not want to go up at the rim. He doesn't have that athleticism anymore to want to go up at the rim from a standstill. He's always losing the ball. We've seen that multiple times, but blowing a 3-on-1 in transition wasn't great. And it was surprising to see Keon miss pretty much the same look from three, wide open, twice in a row. And then there were some lapses in transition defense. Trey Lyles not matching up on Najee Marshall. He gets in for an easy layup. Malik Monk was hobbled. He went down the tunnel. So it was a little bit of a disappointing end to the first quarter, only up 3. Just some missed opportunities that then resulted in the Mavs capitalizing on the other end. Kings just not capitalizing on this opportunity. But then the second quarter started, and that's when the Kings went on their run, 7-0 run. A lot of it in transition, or all of it in transition. Zach LaVine's just an amazing transition player. And I feel like it's why every time I look at the box score at any point in the game, I'm like, he has how many points? Because, yeah, his shot was going down in the half court. He was making some really nice jumpers. But it's just all of these points that he gets in transition add up so much. And so when you look down, you're like, dang, he has a lot of points. So he got 5, and then Keegan went coast to coast, and he did that 2 times in the second quarter, going coast to coast and just bodying the defender out of the way. Twice he took guys one-on-one, straight down the middle of the court with his dribble, his right shoulder, bumps him once, bumps him twice. Earlier in the season, what he would have done is just run full steam into the guy, go into him with his shoulder once, and then throw up a wild shot at the rim. This time, he bumps him once, bumps him twice. These in control bumps using his body and using his strength instead of just flailing into a guy. He's much more in control now and had 2 very impressive finishes. And he was the guy generating a lot of these transition opportunities through his defense. I mean, I think this was one of Keegan's best games of the entire season for him, because when Kyrie was in the game early on, he was doing a very good job on him, forced a turnover. But then he was really good around the rim. He was chasing Klay Thompson around on the perimeter at times. And then these finishes in transition at the rim, alongside of him going 4 for 8 from 3 and shooting it with confidence. And so we knew Zach LaVine was going to find his 3-point shot. A lot of guys settling into the offense and finding their spots, but it's Keegan Murray and his development throughout this season that seems to be the most important to this team. He just played such a mistake-free game, and it's not necessarily about making no mistakes, but just in these last 2 months, he's looked so much more confident on the offensive side of the ball, while still giving you what he's giving you on the defensive side. And then, oh yeah, he took 2 charges as well. The Mavs did answer back a little bit after the Kings 7-0 run to start the second quarter. Markelle Fultz had a rough turnover in transition. Mavs counter with a couple of threes of their own, but then Valanciunas comes back in, immediately gets deep post position. Keegan finds him. Valanciunas is against Omax and finishes right over him. But the Kings, they built this like decent sized lead, 6 points, 8 points. They kind of kept the Mavericks at arm's distance, and LaVine, his shot making was so good. And I feel like he's just found his spot within the offense. He kind of knows where he's going to get his shots, and he's found his flow. There's less hesitation about his game now, which is very encouraging. And he's just making tough shots, but he kept answering whenever the Mavericks would get a bucket. There was one play where he gives the ball to Jake LaRavia, kind of late shot clock, and then goes and sits in the corner. And Malik Monk wasn't on the court. DeMar wasn't on the court. I don't even think Valanciunas was on the court. And so in that moment, I was like, no, you got to go get the ball. Someone's got to go get the ball. But I feel like LaRavia, since he's got here, he keeps finding himself in these situations where guys give him the ball and then just go and stand around. And so LaRavia is just like dribbling around and has to create something. It's never good. But for the most part, I feel like LaVine did take control of the offense when it was needed, when other guys were out of the game. But the Kings, they couldn't totally blow this game open. It felt like they were constantly right there on the cusp of breaking this game open. And it was always just these like little mistakes. I think Keon made a ton of mistakes defensively. I think Keon had one of his worst games of the season because I don't think he played well defensively. Also went 0 for 6 from 3, 0 for 7 from the floor, but it's okay. He picked a good game to have that type of game. But I just think on defense, the Kings closeouts could have been more disciplined because these guys on the Mavericks didn't want to shoot. And so there were times they were letting the Mavericks get to the rim too easily. The Kings messed up some transition opportunities. They missed some easy looks inside. They were letting Kai Jones catch some lobs. And so they were still keeping this lead because, you know, they were good plays as well, like LaRavia hustling on the offensive end, drawing 2 fouls on the same possession, going after offensive rebounds. Keon got a block and forced a shot clock violation on a 3-pointer. But it felt like the Kings should be up more because they were clearly the better team. And so I do think that the end of the second quarter was important to not give the Mavs any confidence, not let them back in the game at all. DeMar, he just took over at the end of the quarter. Absolutely offensive takeover, getting it in the post and just getting to his spots and knocking them down. Also, Malik Monk came back into the game The thing that was keeping the Mavericks in the game was going pick and roll and then finding the lob threats on the backside. And so the Kings, they kind of countered that by they brought Keegan back into the game because he had been on the bench, but they also brought in Lyles for Valanciunas. I think probably for two reasons. One, they didn't want Valanciunas to pick up a foul, but also they wanted to be more switchable because we were getting killed a little bit in that pick and roll. So they started switching a bit more. Keegan took a charge towards the end of the second quarter. That kind of sparked a couple of stops that the Kings got, and they were able to extend the lead to 10 points. And so it felt like after a moment where Levine had a bad turnover in transition that led to a Mavs break, and it was a 6-point game, it felt like it could have gone either way. Like either the Kings end this quarter strong and were headed towards a blowout, or they let the Mavericks kind of come back into this game and gain some confidence a little bit. They were able to build up that double-digit lead, and it just felt like they were on the cusp of locking the Mavericks down defensively, getting like 3 or more stops in a row and capitalizing in transition, and then the game was going to be over. And it didn't necessarily happen at the end of the second quarter, but they did have some good moments, and then that really happened in the third quarter, where they were just able to absolutely lock the Mavericks down. I thought Zach LaVine was very good guarding Klay Thompson, running all around, keeping up with him, and then also hitting tough shots. And really the Kings, they had to chase Klay Thompson off the line. They had to key in on Jaden Hardy and then take away the Kai Jones lob. That was where any Mavericks offense was going to come from. And so then obviously Jaden Hardy goes down, and it becomes even easier because now the Mavericks' only guy that's really going to handle the ball is Spencer Dinwiddie, and he was having an awful game. And the Kings just locked the Mavericks down defensively. There was like 2.5 minutes left to go in the third quarter, and the Kings had allowed 7 points. And then the Mavericks did score 9 points towards the end of the third quarter. So they ended up with 16, which isn't too crazy of a number to look at. But there was a point where I was like, are we going to hold them to single digits in a quarter here? I noticed the Kings ran a play that they normally run for Sabonis to start quarters. They ran it for Valanciunas, where DeMar gets it in the post. Levine screens for Valanciunas, and Valanciunas gets deep post position. He scored. He had a couple of finishes, had a really nice block that led to a Malik Monk 3. And the Mavericks offense was just horrible. Spencer Dinwiddie needed to look to score. Like that was the only thing I was scared of, even a little bit scared of, was Spencer Dinwiddie looking to score. And he just kept looking to pass. He kept passing up all these shots, turning the ball over, just leading to really bad offense, putting his teammates in rough positions. And so the Kings went on a 16-0 run to get up 25 points halfway through the quarter. You had Levine on fire. You had Keegan hitting step back threes. You had Spencer Dinwiddie getting a technical. And the Mavs went like 6 or 7 minutes without a made field goal. And so at that point, the game was over. Najee Marshall got it going. He was attacking Jake LaRavia. And Najee Marshall is a player that I love and really wanted the Kings to get during the offseason. But he was their only offense. He ended up scoring 18 points. But then there were just some fun moments. LaRavia got an offensive rebound, kicked it out to DeMar, who went for a 360 layup, which was an insane attempt and missed it. Keon got a block to end the quarter, and I thought he was going to make like the running 3-point shot at the buzzer. I thought it looked like it was going off the glass to go in. It looked like a good angle, but he just didn't have enough on it. But the Kings ended the quarter up 28. To start the fourth, of course, it was pretty much already over. But the Mavs went to this zone, just, desperate, trying anything. And the Kings just kept getting the ball to Markelle Fultz in the middle of the zone, and he was just picking it apart and scoring. And then a little later on, we got Isaac Jones in the game. I love Isaac Jones. And there was a time where we just have this weird lineup in the game. Like, how do we score? How do we run our offense? Where do we find our flow? And the offense was get the ball to Isaac Jones in the post, and he'll go to work. He'll get you a bucket. And then we got to see Skal Labissière come into the game. First NBA appearance since late 2019. A Kings legend. We got to see Doug McDermott hit a couple threes, also break Kai Jones' ankles. But yeah, just a chill win, which is always nice. You can always use a chill win. No real problems. Everyone played well, maybe outside Keon Ellis. But Keon still managed to get a couple of blocks on jump shooters, of course. But one of the stats, or two of the stats, I guess, that I love It's 7 total turnovers. It's 0 turnovers for Malik Monk. And I mean, you can look at more guys. The only guy with multiple turnovers was Markelle Fultz with 3. And so that just tells you how well this offense was flowing. Going through some of those individual stat lines, DeMar, 20 points, 8 for 15 from the field. Coming back to Dallas after he dominated them for a season high 42 points last time and hit the game winner, hit the game tying bucket to go to overtime. But he looked comfortable again, and the end of the second quarter was very fun, his shot making. But I feel like it was another game where he looked for his shots when they were there, but also when the double teams would come, or even when they wouldn't, he was moving the ball well, which is really the biggest thing for him is to move the ball at the right times, because we know that he can just sit on the ball all possession and then get you a bucket. But it's finding the right balance between scoring and sharing the ball. And it feels like recently he's been finding that balance. Zach LaVine, 29 minutes, had 22 points on 8 for 12 from the field, 4 for 5 from 3, coming off just being named Western Conference Player of the Week. That was the first time he'd been Player of the Week in his career. So he gets traded to the Kings. He wins Player of the Week. I guess the Kings, they got that, big spotlight on him. You come to the Kings, you're going to get national media attention, apparently. Not that anyone actually cares about Player of the Week. It's always funny because I don't even remember that Player of the Week exists until a King wins it. I feel like the only time I've thought about Player of the Week in my life is when Fox had those 2 crazy games back to back, and I was like, oh yeah, he's got to win Player of the Week. That was the only time in my entire life that I've thought about it outside of seeing a Kings player actually win it. But LaVine just looks like he's settled into this team, really on both ends, had a great game. Malik played 23 minutes, had 13 points, 8 assists, 5 for 10 from the field, 3 for 5 from 3. This is the type of game I want to see from Malik. Calm, cool, collected, efficient, no turnovers with the 8 assists, just operating the offense well, sharing the ball well, not dribbling the air out of the ball. And maybe that 3-point shot is coming around a little bit here. It'd be nice for him to go on a little hot streak from 3. Same can be said for Keegan, 4 for 8 from 3, 6 for 10 from the field for 18 points. Like I said, the 2 charges that he took, looked so confident offensively, working really hard as always. Defensively, great game for him. Valanciunas, 6 for 15 from the field. He missed a lot of looks inside that I expected him to make, but it still was a very good game for him. 14 points, 9 rebounds. And with Sabonis being out at least a week, which is good news that it's not longer than that, but these hamstring things can linger and still be a concern even when Sabonis comes back. So it's a big relief to have a starting caliber center here in Valanciunas. And it's just, it still is funny to me that we have Sabonis and Valanciunas on the same team, because they're like the 2 hardest screening players in the league. Maybe Steven Adams gets in there, but I think that's it. It's like these 2 guys and Steven Adams. And so it's like, oh, Sabonis is out? Well, you're just going to get another brick wall screen from Valanciunas. Like, where would the Kings be if they didn't make that trade for Valanciunas? That would have been a nightmare. But Trey Lyles came in off the bench and was very good as the backup center. It's a Mavs team that aren't big. And so that's why coming into this game, I wasn't concerned about the center position, even with Sabonis out. Lyles came in 4 for 4 from the field, 9 points, 9 rebounds, 6 assists. There was a play where I think it was DeMar attracted a double team. So Lyles gets a mismatch down in the post, goes to a post move, attracts a double team himself, kicks out to the perimeter to, I think, Keegan, who knocked down the 3. It was just a really nice in control move from Lyles. So good game for him. LaRavia, he had 3 offensive rebounds in this game. Played some solid defense, except when he was guarding Najee Marshall. He struggled against Najee because Najee, he's got the strength and size, but also the quickness advantage against LaRavia. So that's kind of why he was struggling there. But LaRavia went 2 for 4 from 3. I think both were in garbage time. Well, there's, it's kind of hard to know when garbage time started in this game, but still, it's good to see him getting those 3s up and getting some confidence. Keon, like I said, 0 for 7 from the field. a rough one for him. He had 4 fouls, was just having a struggle of a game really on both ends. But it's okay. We didn't need him in this one. And then the other guy to play real minutes is Markelle Fultz. Played 16, played a bunch in the fourth quarter. I think he might have played the entire fourth quarter. With him, I think you can kind of see some of the places where he's still a little bit rusty. A few of the turnovers, but then you can also see the places where he's confident on the ball and he's scoring the ball, playmaking well. And so I feel like he's a player that doesn't always need to be in the rotation, doesn't always need to play any type of big minutes, but he's a really nice guy to have that can slot in when he's the type of player you need, when you need a guy to go out there and handle the ball, when you need a guard like him to go out and defend, then he slots in perfectly as a vet guy. And so it's just so nice to have this type of depth because the Kings just did not have this at all at the start of the season. Valanciunas, Fultz, LaRavia, and they still have Lyles and Keon. It's just so nice. Then you have, Doug McDermott coming in, splashing a couple of threes. So good game all around. Took care of business. Now, try to close out this 4-game road trip 4-0 against Denver. You're still going to be without Sabonis. And this is going to be a massive test for the Kings defense because the last 4 wins where the Kings are 4-0 in their last 4, Charlotte, Utah, Houston, Dallas. No good offense in there. And then the game before those 4 was Golden State where they allowed 132 points. Before that, it was New Orleans where they allowed 140 in an overtime game. So this is a massive test on the defensive side of the ball. The Nuggets are so much better of an offensive team than this Mavs team we just played, obviously. But there's still some of the same principles you can apply where there are guys that you don't have to close out as hard on. There are guys where you play the percentages. Everyone's got to be locked in defending Jokic. And you gotta bait someone into shooting the Nuggets out of this game. I'm looking at you, Westbrook. Bait Westbrook into shooting the team out of this game. If he's making shots, then that sucks, and you lose, and you move on. Another thing, the Kings have to be good defensively in transition, and they have been good defensively in transition this season. They don't allow a lot of transition points, or at least fast break points, but you got to make sure, always locked in, always getting numbers back behind the ball. Can't let a guy like Christian Brown just dunk all over you in transition. So anyways, that is it for this episode of the Roll Report. I will be back on Wednesday to recap that game against the Nuggets. So I will see you guys then. Peace.